Sudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttam Shloker Bhaktir Bhavtir Nashtaki. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, the Creative Impetus, Chapter 7, the Activities of King Bharat, and the text is 11. It's in prose form, so I'll just read it and then we do the rest. Tasmin va vikilha sa ekalha kulha ashramo pavane vividh kusum kisalya tulasi tulisikam bubhi kandha mulha falopaharash cha samihamno bhagavat aradhanam vivikta upaharat vishayabhilasha upabhratopashanam param nivritim avapaha. So word-to-word translation and purport by His Divine Grace Abhay Charan Arvind Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Please repeat after me. Tasmin, in that ashram, Vavakila, indeed, Saha, Bharat Maharaj, Eklaha, alone only. Pulaha Ashrama Upavane, in the gardens situated in Pulaha Ashram. Vividha Kusuma Kishalya Tulisika Ambubhi, with varieties of flowers, twigs and tulsi leaves, as well as with water. Kandha Mula Phala Upharahe, by offerings of roots, bulbs and fruits. Cha and Samihamana, performing Bhagavataha, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Aradhanam, worshipping, Viviktaha, purified, Uprata, being freed from, Vishaya Abhilashaha, desire from material sense enjoyment, Upabhrata, increased, Upshamaha, tranquility, Param, transcendental, Nirvrittim, satisfaction, Avapaha, he obtained. Translation. In the gardens of Pulaha Ashram, Maharaj Bharat lived alone and collected a variety of flowers, twigs and tulsi leaves. He also collected the water of the Gandaki river, as well as various roots, fruits and bulbs. With these he offered food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudev, and worshipping him, he remained satisfied. In this way, his heart was completely uncontaminated, and he did not have the least desire for material enjoyment. All material desires vanished. In this steady position, he felt full satisfaction and was situated in devotional service. Please repeat after me. In the gardens of Pulaha Ashrama, Maharaj Bharat lived alone and collected a variety of flowers, twigs and tulsi leaves. He also collected the water of the Gandaki river, as well as various roots, fruits, and bulbs. With these he offered food to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudev, and worshipping him, he remained satisfied. In this way, his heart was completely uncontaminated, and he did not have the least desire for material enjoyment. All material desires vanished. In this steady position, he felt full satisfaction and was situated in devotional service. Purport: everyone is searching after peace of mind. This is obtainable only when one is completely freed from the desire for material sense gratification and is engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhakta Paraschati, Chapter 9, Text 26. Worship of the Lord is not at all expensive. One can offer the Lord a leaf, a flower, a little fruit, or some water. The Supreme Lord accepts these offerings when they are offered with love and devotion. In this way, one can become freed from material desires. As long as one maintains material desires, he cannot be happy. As soon as one engages in the devotional service of the Lord, his mind is purified of all material desires. Then one becomes fully satisfied. Save pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktir adhokshaje ahetukya apritihata yayatma suprasidati vasudeve bhagavati bhakti yoga prayojitha janayatya ashu vairagyam jnanam chayad ahetukam. The supreme occupation, dharma, for all humanity is that by which men can attain to loving devotional service unto the Transcendental Lord. Such devotional service must be unmotivated and uninterrupted in order to completely satisfy the self. By rendering devotional service unto the Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 6 and 7. These are the instructions given in Srimad Bhagavatam, the supreme Vedic literature. One may not be able to go to Pulaha Ashram, but wherever one is, one can happily render devotional service to the Lord by adopting the processes mentioned above. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaiham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeyaham Shri Guruho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadhvetam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nite Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Paricharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhe Evacha Patita Nam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. The text again. Tasmin vav kilhasa ekala pula ashramo pavane vividha kusum kishalya tulasi ambubhi kandhamula falo parharishchas samihamano bhagavat aradhanam vivikta uparat vishayabhilasha upabhratopashamaha parama nivrittim avapaha. In the gardens of Pulha Ashram, Maharaj Bharat lived alone and collected a variety of flowers, twigs and tulsi leaves. He also collected the waters of Gandaki river as well as various roots, fruits and bulbs. With these he offered food to the Supreme Personality, Godhead Vasudev, and worshipping him he remained satisfied. In this way his heart was completely uncontaminated and he did not have the least desire for material enjoyment. All material desires vanished. In this steady position, he felt full satisfaction and was situated in devotional service. So, we're continuing to read and hear about Maharaj Bharat, King Bharat, the eldest son of King Rishabdev, who after enjoying material opulence for 10 million years, he retired from family life and divided his wealth amongst his sons, and he left for Pulha Ashram, where Shaligram Shilas are obtained on the banks of the Gandaki river. And there, he says, King Bharat actually had darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva, and by which King Bharat's desires were satisfied. And then at Pulha Ashram, so now what has been described is what he did in the ashram at Pulha Rishi. Pulha Rishi is one of the 7 Sapt Rishis, the mental sons of Lord Brahma, and his ashram was in the Himalayas on the banks of the Gandaki river. And Prabhupada mentions in a couple of verses before, he says it was situated in Haridwar, but not sure where Gandaki river flows through Haridwar. Gandaki river actually flows in the Nepal area, but Haridwar is mentioned here. I don't know, somebody can look into that. And here in the ashram, what he did, he lived alone, and he collected varieties of flowers, twigs, and tulsi leaves. He collected the river water, as well as various roots, fruits, and bulbs, which he offered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva, and he worshipped him, and remained satisfied in that. That was his reason of leaving his wealth, his wife, his kingdom, his opulence, his sons, to become satisfied and to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he did not, and in this way his heart was completely uncontaminated. Earlier on, it was also mentioned that the contamination of the heart, or the purification of the heart, is the key thing, because the heart is full of non-wanted items, Kama, Krodha, Mada, Lobha, Moha and Matsarya. So these 6 avguns, or non-wanted items, the heart is contaminated, and these things are reflected in the mind, because mind is a mirror of the heart. So the key was to uncontaminate or purify the heart, and that's what Maharaj Bharat did, and his heart became uncontaminated. And by doing that, the result of uncontaminated heart was that he did not have the least desire for material enjoyment. Even though he left the planet Earth, because he was ruling, he was the emperor of the Earth planet. He had all the opulences in the world, but still those material desires still remain in somebody's heart, in everyone's heart. And the idea was to lessen and minimize and nullify. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan, Lalita Vishaka Devi ki jai, Gonitayi ki jai, Krishna Balaram ki jai, Prahlad Nrsimhadev Bhagwan ki jai. The idea is for everyone to purify one's heart and therefore nullify or get rid of the material desires one may have. And in this steady position he felt full satisfaction and was situated in devotional service. So that's the key. How to be situated in devotional service. And that is by purification of the heart, by which the material desires for material enjoyments are vanished. In this way, one is satisfied and remains in devotional service. Now, Srila Prabhupada begins his purport with the first line, which is fully loaded. It's the most loaded line one can probably get. And what is the line? Everyone is searching after peace of mind. On this line alone, one can write theses. One can give lectures, seminars, and for weeks and weeks. Everyone is searching after peace of mind. It's very easy to read, very easy to say it, but it's another thing actually understanding it and getting into details of that. And Prabhupada, as we know, in his purports throughout Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures, and he summarizes. Sometimes, many times he gives many concepts and in detail, but many other times he actually summarizes and like a sutra form the various topics present in other parts of the scriptures. And this is one of them. This particular one line is actually whole philosophy is behind this particular line. Everyone is searching after peace of mind. Everyone. There's no one in this world who's not searching after peace of mind. I don't think anyone exists who's not searching after peace of mind. And to search this peace of mind, many different avenues are explored. Some go to the psychiatrists, some go to the doctor, some take drugs, some do yoga, some go do some counseling, some support friends, etc. Because although in this world it is the general understanding, and we see that, is that everyone is after Kanchan, Kamini and Kirti, after wealth, women and fame. But even acquiring that, unless one has peace of mind, they have no meaning, or they have very little meaning. Because the wealthiest people, they don't have peace of mind. Even though one may be the most famous, or even though one may have all the persons of opposite sex, but still that peace of mind is eluding. It's very difficult to obtain. In fact, there are documentaries where the rich and famous people in the world are being interviewed. They have everything in the world. Name, fame, they have big houses, all the cars, millionaires, big businesses, their houses are like palaces, everything materially one can think of. So this documentary I saw a long time ago. For 1 hour documentary, they interviewed many such rich people. And there's one theme running through that. None of them had peace of mind. They're all trying, they all admitted, I've achieved my dream. what I wanted to do, become rich, famous, have many cars. I have 10 Ferraris or Porsche in my garage. I have a big swimming pool, big huge bank balance. People know me. When I go out, they worship me. But still, that peace of mind is eluding me. So this peace of mind is that's the basis of everything in this world. Even when practices devotion, any path of religion, any religious path, in any religion, the first and foremost and the fundamental of that particular way or path is controlling the mind. Any religious process you go. And that is very much true in the Vedic tradition. Unless and until one first and foremost controls the mind, because everything rests on this particular on this particular aspect. And when that is not done, it's just like building castles in the air. You may have the castles, but how long will they last? So that is a very important topic. Now, what happens if one is unable to control or unable to have peace of mind? Depression, anxiety, stress, which leads to suicides. Actually, the biggest industry in this world, which runs into, one may think, the Ambanis or the Birlas of India, the Tatas, they have a big industry. The biggest industry in the world is not multi-million dollar industry, it's actually multi-billion dollar industry. What is that? Drugs. Multi-billion dollar industry. And one of the biggest, now one more drug has taken over, one of the biggest and most successful drugs which is prescribed in the world today, especially in the Western countries, I'm sure that is also true in India, are antidepressants. Prozac, for example. Why people get antidepressed? Well, people get depressed because they don't have peace of mind. In America alone, at least 30 to 40% of the population are on antidepressants. 30 to 40% is a huge amount in the Western countries. And that is a result of not having peace of mind. Depression, anxiety, stress. And this leads to suicides. This leads to mass murder. It's very well documented phenomenon that if one doesn't have peace of mind, i.e. the screws are loose in the head, in a slang, all these mass murders which are taking place in the world, or individually or collectively, and crime rate goes up by not having a peace of mind, as well as by trying to control the mind by taking antidepressants. Now, one side of these drugs makes you more depressed sometimes, and that actually fuels more crime. This is very well documented. So everyone is after peace of mind. Everyone is after peace of mind. And how does one obtain peace of mind? That is the next question. And Prabhupada the purport here of Prabhupada is very, very, as always, as every purport is. He starts and he goes through very systematically to the end. Fantastic basis, wonderful content, and excellent conclusion. That's what Prabhupada's, all his purports are all about. And because he's a self-realized personality. He knows, he's seen everything. And he was a pharmacist himself. He knew about all these things. And everyone is searching after peace of mind. This is obtainable only when one is completely freed from the desire for sense gratification and is engaged in devotional service of the Lord. So two things. How does one obtain peace of mind? He says this is obtainable only, nothing else. Not these drugs, not this, although part of the yoga process is controlling the mind, part of the Ashtanga yoga, but other aspects which we see and hear and people go for, Prabhupada here is completely rejecting that. He says this is only obtainable if one is completely freed from the desire for material sense enjoyment and is engaged in devotional service. So, as we see King Bharat was doing, he was engaging in devotional service. So what are the desires? What is the desire for material sense gratification? As we know, the material sense gratification is gross sense of gratification as well as subtle sense gratification. Gross sense gratification, we know, enjoyment, wealth, women. You may have bhukti, mukti, that other aspect within the process of devotional, within the process of a religious path. You may also have sense gratification. Bhukti, mukti, siddhi. So these three aspects. Besides non-religious path is, as I said, kanchan, kamni, kirti. And on a religious path, you have bhukti, mukti, and siddhi. They're also sense gratification on the path of a religious, for a religious aspirant. But these are gross. But then you have subtle. Labh, puja, and pratishtha. Name, fame, and adoration. Attraction to opposite sex. And that's very difficult to detect. Very difficult to detect. So these are unless one is completely freed from these desires, material desires, and is engaged in devotional service. One cannot engage in devotional service unless one is freed from these desires. Now the next question comes, how does one becomes freed from the material desires? And Prabhupada also talks about that. It's through, obviously, ultimately, it's through devotional service. And Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita also points it out. Param drishtva nivartate. Vishaya vinirvartante. Dahina niraharasya dahina. Rasvarjam rasopasya. Param drishtva nivartate. That desire may remain, even though one is restricted from sense enjoyment. Unless that desire is dovetailed for a higher purpose, for a higher cause, param drishtva nivartate, one is very difficult to engage in devotional service. And then Srila Prabhupada is pointing out very aptly, immediately, he says it's not very difficult to engage in devotional service at all. One may think, I have to go to, as in previous ages, I had to go to the Himalayas, to the ashram, perform all these austerities, live alone, and then, have 3 baths a day, meditate, Ashtanga yoga, this and that. But that was the process in previous ages. But here Prabhupada says, as stated in Bhagavad Gita, worship of the Lord is not at all expensive, and it's very easy and practical. How? Patram pashpam phalam toyam yoma bhakta prashyati. Just by offering patram, pushpan, phalam, and toyam, water, fruits, etc. Tulsi leaves, flowers, and it's not very expensive and very easy to do. But the key question is, with this easy process, there's always caveats. There's always warnings, or there's always conditions as well. It's like chanting of the holy name, very easy to do, but to do it properly is very difficult. Why? Because one has to avoid the 10 offenses. Similarly, by the devotional service, Srila Prabhupada says, is not at all expensive. One can offer the Lord a leaf, a flower, a little water, and fruit. The Supreme Lord accepts these offerings when Tadaham bhaktya uprahatam ashnami prayatatmanah. Tadaham bhaktya uprahatam. Rupa says, when there is offered with love and devotion. That is the key. With love and devotion. Unless this love and devotion is there, then Krishna may not accept. So that easy process of devotional service doesn't become very easy unless this love and devotion is there. In this way, one can become freed from material desires. That is the key. In this way, one can become freed from material desires. By what? By performing devotional service. And how does one control? How does one do the devotional service again? By controlling the mind. So then the question comes, going back a bit, how does one control the mind? What is it that is stopping the mind to be controlled? Anyone? What is stopping the mind to control, to be controlled? What is the obstacle for the mind for it to be controlled? Nature, yes. Anyone? Attraction from material sense object, yes. Anyone else? Impurities? Any more? Material desires, yes. Desire to be Lord and Master, yes. These are all this is a good way of keeping everyone awake. Questioning. Bhava Rog. Yeah, the disease of material enjoyment. Anyone else? Lack of training, yes. Material modes of nature, yes. Very good. Yes, these are all there. Attachments. Sorry, I didn't hear that. Intelligence, yes. Very good. But I think above all these, what is stopping the mind controlling is the mind itself. Right? Isn't it? Why? Here. Because Arjun also said that. Because the mind is what? Chanchal, is flickering, is parmathi, is agitating. It's what? Balvad, very strong, and Dridam is very obstinate. So mind is stopping itself to be controlled. Right. And Krishna said, yes, you're right, Arjun, asamshayam mahabaho. But then, abhyasena tu kauntya viragyena chagriyate. Two things, abhyas and renunciation. And here, Prabhupada quotes, what does he quote? The shlokas from Srimad Bhagavatam 1, 2, 6 and 7, which talks about, he says, because their mind is not controlled, because they don't have peace of mind, they don't know Swarth Gatim Hi Vishnum. They don't know there's real nature or there's real interest is Lord Vishnu. And because they don't know that, that's why Savyapamsa Paradharma. They don't know what is the Paradharma, what is the supreme occupation, because the minds are disturbed, the mind is not controlled. Yato Bhakti Radakshajay. And then Vasudeva Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojita. But here's the thing, Janatya Ashu Vairagyam. As soon as one takes up devotional service, what happens? Janatya, immediately Ashu Vairagyam. Detachment comes. Vairagya cha griyate. Lord Krishna is also talking about that in Bhagavad Gita. Jnanam chad yad etikam, and jnana, knowledge comes. And this through knowledge is the key also for detachment as well as controlling the mind. So this controlling the mind, and Lord Krishna also points it out. in Bhagavad Gita 6, chapter 6, 5, he says, one must deliver himself with the help of the mind. Udher atma atmanam, na atmanam avsadayet. And not degrade himself, avsadayet. The mind is a friend of the conditioned soul as well as his enemy. Atmaev he atmano bandhur, atmaev ripur atmana. So that's the mind, you know. And what happens if one has controlled the mind? You know, bandhur atmanas tasya ye atmana jitha anatmanas tu shatrutve vartata atmahe shatruvat. For one who has control, one who has conquered the mind is best of friends, otherwise remains the worst of enemies. Then what is the result of that? Jitatmana prashantasya paramatmaha samahita. One who has controlled the mind, Paramatma, is already realized. And that's what is being talked about here. For one, everyone is searching after peace of mind. And unless peace of mind is there, then it's very difficult the detachment isn't there, very difficult to perform the devotional service. But by performing devotional service, his mind is controlled also. But as long as the devotional service is performed in the right way or properly, only then is it effective. And there's different aspects, different limbs, different parts of devotional service. Jai Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan Lalita Vishaka Devi ki jai, Shri Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Krishna Balaram ki jai, Prahlad Nrsimha Dev Bhagwan ki jai. And we know there are different aspects, different limbs of what devotional service constitute. But the best or the most effective limb of devotional service is chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. Without offenses, if one wants to control it quickly. Because mantra is that's something which delivers the mind. Manaha tarayate iti mantra. Right? And it is that most effective. There are other ways of controlling the mind. As Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, beat it morning and evening. Prabhupada also points it out in other places. Ignoring its demands. Training it. Educating it, speaking to it, praying. There are many ways of controlling the mind. But the most effective is one properly engaging in devotional service, as Maharaj Bharat did, and as Srila Prabhupada is pointing out. Only when one is and by devotional service, when one performs devotional service, only then, if the material desires persist, then it's very difficult to control. Then the next question comes also. Sometimes it is found that while performing devotional service, one doesn't have peace of mind. Sometimes it is found that one has more peace of mind while one is not doing devotional service. And when one takes up devotional service, one becomes more agitated, has less peace of mind. It is seen. So why is that? That is obviously, and also, Susukam Kartum Avyam, 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it points it out. Unless one performs this path of devotional service, Susukam, happily, one becomes happy by it. That's the criteria. Criteria or the, to judge if one is progressing nicely or effectively on the path of devotional service is happiness and peace of mind. There's these are side effects, immediate side effects. Janatya ashu vairagyam jnanam cha ahitukam. Immediately. If they don't come, that means this devotional service is not being performed properly. You know, because Bhagavatam is saying immediately, janatya ashu, vairagya and jnana immediately comes. And then Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter points out, Susukam kartum avyam. Has to be there. So then the question comes, what is not right on the path of devotional service? And it is also said, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna Bhakta Nishkam Ateva Shanta. Right? Because a devotee of Krishna is Nishkam. Because he's desireless. He doesn't have any desire for material enjoyment. Therefore, Ataev, he's Shanta, he's peaceful. So that's another criteria of becoming peaceful, becoming Nishkam. And those who are not, who still have desires, Bhukti, Mukti, Siddhi, Kami, they're lusty desires. Bhukti, Mukti, and enjoyment, liberation, and yogic perfections. Shakli Ashanta. Because they're Ashanta. But then question comes, even while performing devotional service, one becomes Ashanta. Because although one may not have gross material desires, sometimes subtle material desires persist for a long, long time. And it is that a devotee can relatively easily work on gross material desires, but subtle material desires are very hard to work on. Because it's you and the desires. It's not easily visible for others to detect. So they are more dangerous. And this is where the mind comes in. If the mind is not controlled, then the mind will work on the subtle desires, and then one's path on the devotional service can become very difficult. And sometimes one can leave the path of devotional service. And then at the end, Srila Prabhupada points out, one doesn't need to go, because he earlier said, it's very easy to perform devotional service, and it is also very easy to perform devotional service wherever one is. Doesn't have to go to the Himalayas or different ashrams or dense jungles. No, Prabhupada says, one may not be able to go to Pulaha ashram, but wherever one is, one can happily render devotional service to the Lord by adopting the processes mentioned above. So wherever one is at, one can perform devotional service. But the criteria is these things. Peace of mind, performing devotional service without offenses, etc. And that's why Prabhupada has wonderfully created ISKCON and ashrams all over the world. And these are ideal places to perform and engage in devotional service, and for which we are all eternally indebted to Srila Prabhupada. And he makes everything so simple. By reading, that's a sign of intelligence. To make the most complicated things very simple to understand. And in every purport of Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, other scriptures, Prabhupada's made the most complicated subject matter very simple to understand. And that is his, amongst unlimited other contributions, is his unique contribution Srila Prabhupada has made. So, that's how we must obtain peace of mind by performing devotional service. It's very easy to do, can be performed anywhere, but there are criteria for performing devotional service, there are conditions. Unless one adopts them, is the process, it becomes less effective, or takes a long time to achieve one's goal. One has to be careful. And the most powerful and most entity in the world, or the most destructive entity in the world, is the mind. Most quickest, speediest entity in the world is the mind. And it's easy said than done, but one has to try to control the mind. And uncontrolled mind, we know the symptoms, we don't need to get into that. But I think we'll stop here. If there are any corrections or any comments or any questions? Rajendra Krishna Prabhu. Mine. So.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thanks for your wonderful class. My question is that we see that if the devotee is engaged according to his propensities in devotional service, he finds more peace. Whereas if he is engaged not according to his propensities, then even while performing devotional services, he may be in anxiety. Example, there are people who are good in managing, and there are people who are not good in managing, who can do simple services like Pujari Seva or some other services. But when they are asked to do some managerial activity, crowd control, department running, they find it in difficulty. But another aspect is we should follow the authorities, the service is given by authorities. So there's a little contradiction. So in this, would you like to give your comments on this?
See, my understanding, I like to welcome others' points of view on this. This engaging according to one's propensities, initially, yes, at a later stage, right. When one joins Path of Devotional Service, ISKCON, if one expects to be engaged in according to one's propensities, I don't think that is practical. That engagement in one's propensities comes at a later stage. Because if one immediately thinks that I must be engaged according to my propensity, then one is still carrying on the Varanashram system in one's mind. I am a Kshatriya, I am a Vaishya, I am a Shudra, I have this intelligence, I have this qualification, I must be engaged according to that. But that's not what ISKCON is all about. ISKCON, Prabhupada said many times, is like an army, it's army camp. One, or put it this way, when one comes in a path of devotional service, the idea is to become a Vaishnava. A Vaishnava is willing and ready to do anything, even if means if that is not according to one's liking. What is according to one's propensity means? It's what I like, what I want to do, what I like. Right? But is that devotional service? No. I mean, you read Prabhupada Lilamrita, you read how ISKCON was established. What was done or what is being done even today by all these devotees who's taken responsibility is not necessarily their liking. They've been requested to do, and they're doing it because they submitted themselves to the order of Srila Prabhupada or the authority. They are, although they may not like the particular service, even though they may not be very good at it, but because they have a desire, and here the mind comes in. And here the key, if the mind keeps saying, no, I don't like this, I can't do this, it's not my nature, then that becomes an obstacle itself for performing part of devotional service. But if one thinks, no, I don't know how to do this, but I've been asked to do this, I'm going to do this for Guru and Gauranga, even though I'm useless at it. I'm going to put my 1000% in it. That is devotional service. Otherwise, what is happening? You're performing Nishkam Karma Yoga. By think I want to do things according to my propensity. What is Nishkam Karma Yoga? I'm attached to what I'm doing. But Bhakti is I will do what I've been told to. So that contradiction, that struggle is in the mind. And one normally sees, one sees that after a while, even though one doesn't know anything of that particular aspect, that janattu ashu vairagyam jnanacha hetukam, immediately knowledge comes if one performs devotional service. Krishna within guides and makes sure you do things properly because you want to do it to please him. Not that it's not my propensity, I'm not going to do it, immediately put a block on that devotional, on that service. And this is not devotion, this is not following the order of the authority. So one has to be very careful on that. I mean, so many examples one doesn't need to give. Prabhupada said, devotees do not want to do, they went and established so much. I mean, all of you can look at example in your life. While coming to ISKCON, you never had experience of doing. I mean, you're looking after the altar department. Did you have experience of that? You did electrical engineering, right? So, you don't have experience, but you did it, and now you're successful. But that's where one has to use intelligence and control the mind, consultation, and many ways of doing that. But that is an obstacle in the path of devotional service. As I said, mind can be best of friends or worst of enemies, even during the path of devotional service. Sometimes, as I said, these obstacles are much more while practicing devotional service than otherwise. More. Because the purification is taking place. And that purification also becomes the byproduct of purification can become obstacle on path of devotional service because they help the mind doing that. Somebody else had a question? Sadhan Siddhi.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for wonderful class. But I want to comment on his question as you answered. See, devotional service, as Srila Prabhupada also says, starts from Brahma Bhuta Prashanatma, na shachati na kangshati, samo sarveshu bhutashu madbhakti labhate para. See, it's not that all of us we are situated on Brahma Bhuta stage. Because maybe 1 month ago I asked one question to Guru Maharaj that as Srila Prabhupada wanted to establish Varnasam, Devi Varnasam system in ISKCON. So, how do we categorize that he is a Kshatriya, he is a Brahmana, he is a Vaishya, he is a Shudra? And then he answered, yeah, in ISKCON also, there is no Kshatriya, but other three are there.
There is no such what? There is no?
Kshatriya, he says,
okay.
I don't know, Guru Maharaj himself says, I don't know what if, how to establish Kshatriya because it's not possible in ISKCON. But other threes are there. Now, as you answered that we have our own independent mentality and propensity. So if authority says, okay, you do this, and I say, okay, I don't like to do this. I want to do this because I'm expert or not. I'm habituated or I like this to do. So in this, authority says, okay, you do this, and I'm saying, not, I'll not do this. I'll do that. So unless you are situated in pure devotional service, because we are on the bodily platform, and still we are in the Varnasam system because we have not transcended this bodily platform. So I don't understand that how can we engage someone that, okay, forcefully that, okay, you have to do this. Then ultimately he may also leave this.
See, one should not think that unless I come on Brahma Bhuta platform, I can't do this devotional service. That itself is an obstacle. How to become on the platform of Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma? How? By engaging in devotional service. But what does it mean to engage in devotional service? Doing service, following the authority. That may be against one's propensity. But if one thinks, I can only engage in devotional service on that level, and I have to come to the level, then I will follow my authority. That is not the right thing to do either. Yes, you're right. Many of us are not on that level. But we have to practice abhyasena tu konteya, abhyas yog yuktena. You know, in the 8th chapter, Krishna points out. So this abhyas, this practice makes perfect, as they say in English. So unless one practices becoming or following the authority or becoming devotional service, what is the fundamental basis of devotional service? Is surrender. Right? But if one thinks, I will only do my devotional service when I reach there, I'm right now here, I have to be there to do devotional service, that may never happen. But it may happen. But one has to start somewhere. Right? There's a saying in Chinese saying, isn't it? Road to cross, I'm just paraphrasing, to cross 1,000 miles begins with one step. You know, something like that. There's something, journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. You know? So one has to begin somewhere. So immediately we're putting a big goal in front of us. That also becomes an obstacle.
But as you spoke about surrender, one may surrender his body, you know, like being a devotee of an institution or being a devotee of ISKCON, one may surrender unto like authority. But according to my opinion, this is not actually ultimate surrender, because surrender should be, you know, there to eternal thing. Like for example, one may say that like someone is here today and someone is not there. Like after some days he may leave this temple and go to another temple. So in this way, I think surrender is, you know, just promoting from one temple to another. In this way, he may surrender to 1,000. So, okay, one may say that I can surrender unto Guru and Krishna because it has eternal connection with the eternal spiritual world. But all this, you know, surrender, it's simply on bodily platform, at the most mental platform and intellectual platform. But one cannot surrender his soul unto like authority. Okay, being a devotee of ISKCON or an institution, one may surrender unto someone. According to my opinion, it's not ultimate surrender.
It may not be the ultimate surrender, but surrender has to begin somewhere. And there's nothing wrong in surrendering to 1,000 different people, 1,000 different devotees. That will give you more experience, variety of ways to surrender. If one thinks there's only one way to surrender, then one may not be fully knowledgeable what a surrender actually means. So that ultimate surrender also begins somewhere. And because we're following sadhana bhakti, this sadhana bhakti means practice. We're practicing these aspects. And that practice, abhyas, the word abhyas you find many places. And that practice is sadhana bhakti. And in sadhana bhakti, it begins with surrender. Whether physically, okay, you may physically surrender, mentally you may not do that. You know, if somebody authority tells you, do things, you know, mentally you're cursing him. But physically doing it because you have to do it, otherwise you'll be asked to leave. That's okay. The surrendering is beginning. But later on, at a later stage, when the mind and the body concurs together, that's a much advanced stage of surrender. Yes, there's obviously different levels of surrender as we know. So I am more surrendered if I do this grudgingly. If I'm not doing this grudgingly but willingly, then it's higher surrender. But the principle, whether it's ultimate surrender or basic surrender, the principle of surrender is there. And they can only come with practice. And the practice will only be perfect if the mind is controlled. And how to control the mind is devotional service, as Srila Prabhupada is pointing out. And with that devotional service, without offenses. But that has to begin somewhere else as well. Journey of 1,000 miles begins with one first step. One has to begin somewhere. If that is not done, immediately we know the goal. Just like, who was it? Who wanted to build the staircase to heaven? Ravan and there was somebody else, right? Anyway, Ravan, there's one more, he wanted to go to heaven without being qualified. So we want to surrender Trishanku, that's right, Trishanku. Yeah, so one has to go, okay, put it this way, there's two ways of walking or going to one's goal. One is the path of hare is rabbit, or other one is by the way of a tortoise. You see, we can go fully with the speed of the rabbit or the speed of the tortoise. But we know what happens if we go too quickly without. See, practice, what does practice means? Practice means that you slowly by practicing, you laying the foundations to that path. And these foundations will help one progress on the path of devotional service. By that, you're not building castles in the air. By practice, slow practice, you're actually building the foundations to the palace. Yes, there are some like Katwang Maharaj, who immediately became, within few seconds, Krishna conscious, and he obtained his goal. But not everyone is Katwang Maharaj. We have to follow, as Prabhupada points out, path of devotional service. I think time is Nimai Sundar.
Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
So, Prabhu, in Bhagavad Gita 7.4 and 7.5, Krishna says, like Bhumi Rapo Analvayu Khamana Buddhi Revacha Ahankarityama Bhinna Prakriti. And then Aparimeta Tastam. So, Krishna says actually this mind, intelligence, and false ego, these are inferior energy and soul is superior to that. So, and of course, because they are subtle, so they are superior to gross elements. And in our whole discussion, it was concluded that mind is the strongest entity. So here what described and the solution was devotional service. So is it the mind or false ego? So
is it the mind or?
Is it mind
or false ego?
False ego. Because these are the two obstacles on the path of devotional service. It's contaminated mind and false ego. The similar incidents comes in 11th canto, the song of Avanti Brahmana. He also first, from text number 42 to 57, he tells it is in mind. In the solution he gives like etam sa asthaya paratmanishtam adhyastam purut arshmi aham tarishyami durantaparam. So please say something. Is it the mind actually or a false?
Actually, no.
ego?
Yes, false ego is there, but how does the ego becomes false? It's through the mind. It is a mind, and how does mind what allows the mind to make ego false? Is intelligence, right? And how is the intelligence controlled? By the individual, by the self. So ultimately, but okay, coming back to your question first, is it the mind or the false ego? It is the mind. The mind is, as Prabhupada writes somewhere, and maybe in lectures, he says, over the period of lifetimes, the hierarchy is the mind, intelligence controls the mind, right? But over a period of time, of many, many lifetimes, mind has become such a powerful entity that mind is controlling the intelligence and dictating the intelligence. So ultimately, out of the subtle entities, the mind, false ego, and intelligence, it is the mind which has become the most powerful entity and is dictating others. Is even dictating, it's dictating. It has become the greatest dictator. It is mind which, if mind is controlled, the false ego also gets controlled. Because what fuels the false ego is mind. What is fanning the false ego is the mind. Mind is saying, there was one advertisement in the TV long time ago I saw, which illustrates that. There was one in the advertisement, the protagonist, the hero, I don't remember the details, he's asking, he wants to do something. So he wants to do that in the right way, according to advertisement, and suddenly other head pops up. That's like Ravan's head. And he's saying, no, don't do that, don't do that. Then he's saying, no, I have to do it. And suddenly other head pops up. He said, no, don't do this. I did do the wrong thing. Do the wrong thing. Like this, many heads pop up. That's the mind and the full, and his other mind is telling. Then because then he reads the advertisement, he said, no, I have to do this. Then with his willpower, he says, no. And suddenly all the heads disappear. And his original head is there because he's controlled his mind. And here, they're not talking about controlling the false ego. Nowhere you find you have to control false ego. They all say, yes, prakrite kriyamanani, all that, kartaham iti manyate. But the key is controlling the mind, not the false ego. If the mind is controlled, false ego is controlled. More questions? I think time is up. I think we'll end the class, but whoever wants to ask a question. Prabhu, last question.
Hare Krishna, my question is that you said that when we do devotional service, immediately Gyan and Vairagya will arise. But if they are not there, Gyan and Vairagya, then how can we come to net that what is default in our devotional service? Or in which aspect we should work more?
This is Srimad Bhagavatam saying that. Yes, if that doesn't come, then how do we know we're doing things rightly? Is that the question? Well, then one has to see, as I said, this material desires may be there. Other desires which may be becoming obstacles in performing the devotional service. So one has to look at those obstacles which are blocking the path of devotional service. And that depends on individual. All of us have different obstacles on the path of devotional service, and is that what we have to work on? We can work on individually, we can work on with the help and support from others, and that the obstacles in path of devotional service. You see, chanting, as I said, or these concentrating on chanting 16 rounds and doing other parts of other forms of devotional service is very well essential, inevitable, must do. But then we also must look at the obstacles which kind of come with that, and we have to work on those as well as our sadhana. We have to do that. Okay, I think we'll stop here. Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.